Welcome into this crossover Thursday, Locked On Bears and Locked On Lions. I'm Lorin Cox from Locked On Bears alongside Matt Dery from Locked On Lions, getting you ready for, of course, the biggest game everyone's excited for on Thanksgiving between two powerhouse Super Bowl contenders, the Detroit Lions and Chicago Bears. Kind of a sad state of both franchises right now, both teams going in, well, with definitely at least quarterback question marks and probably low quality quarterback play at that. Matt, maybe I'm not doing a good job of selling this matchup, but what are you sort of looking forward to in this game? What's going to get you out of bed? What's going to make you turn on your TV to watch this one?
Well, Lorin, I mean, you and I have talked so many times over the years about Lions, Bears. I've made fun of the Bears. You made fun of the Lions, but I think we can both agree. I pity this national audience having to watch a 0-win Lions team and a Bears team where, 3 wins and their coach is reportedly going to be fired after the game. Although that's, we'll get into that. But look, football's football. It's going to be fun to watch because it's Thanksgiving. It's the only game on. But like you said, bad quarterback play, two teams that are not going anywhere. But the Lions probably feel like this is, again, and we've kind of had this talk before, this is a good shot for them to get that first win.
Well, they almost got that first win against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, the finishing in a tie is not a loss. They're no longer going to go, completely full loss this season. And it was a team the Bears failed to beat. So in some ways, the Lions had a better outcome against the Steelers than the Bears were able to do. What was working for the Lions in that game? How have they gotten close here without being able to push through for that first victory?
Well, Lauren, in the last 2 weeks, what this team has basically done is it's like the Princeton basketball offense from Pete Carrill back in the 90s, which is basically hold the ball, wait for the shot clock to run down, and then hope at the end that you're in the game and you can win it. The Lions against the Steelers went to a run-only offense when Jared Goff got hurt, run-only meaning 3rd and 15 in Pittsburgh's territory, and they still would run the football. Last week, the same thing with the Browns game. Here we are. It's a 13-10 game, and the Lions had the football with a chance to tie or take the lead in the fourth quarter. They elected on 4th and 1 or 4th and long to punt and never got the ball back because Nick Chubb ran out the clock on a couple of third down runs. But basically, this Dan Campbell-led offense now, where the head coach, Dan Campbell, is running the team and running the offense and calling the plays. Anthony Lynn has been demoted, but they're running this conservative, run-only, use clock, punt, field position offense to try to stay in games. And that's how they nearly beat Pittsburgh, and it's how they nearly beat the Browns this past week.
How have they been able to run the ball so effectively I think they're like in the top 10 in yards per carry, and it seems like DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams have run the ball well. How are they doing that so well, even though it would seem like most defenses could tell, whether it's Goff or which we're expecting him back, but especially without Goff, that they're not going to be able to pass the ball effectively. They're not that big of a threat in the passing game. So how have they been able to have to have at least rushing success, even if it hasn't led to scoreboard success?
Well, I'll say this. DeAndre Swift is running the football with a reckless abandonment right now. He's been fantastic. And the cutback lanes have been there. Penei Sewell on the right side now, back at right tackle. Taylor Decker at left tackle. And let's be honest, Evan Brown, the backup center playing for Frank Ragnow, who's out for the year, has done a really nice job. So you're looking at 3 of your 5 offensive linemen that have graded out pretty well, that are moving bodies. Sewell hasn't allowed a pressure or a sack in weeks. Yet Decker back now. So they've been able to run the ball. The tight ends have done a pretty good job blocking. They put an emphasis on it, so it's there. The Steelers took Swift away in the 3rd and 4th quarters in overtime 2 weeks ago because the Lions just could not throw. But all in all, this commitment to the run and some of the scheme has worked. Unfortunately, it hasn't led to points on the scoreboard, though.
It sounds like from what we heard from Dan Campbell this week that Goff is trending in the right direction and should potentially be available to play. We know Goff wasn't playing that well, but we saw how terrible Tim Boyle was the week before. How much of a boost realistically is it to get Goff back? How much more of a passing threat does he provide, given still having the same challenges at wide receiver and some of the pass catchers?
It's like going to that Thanksgiving buffet and the food has been cooked and sitting there for 2 weeks and you got to eat something. and the mashed potatoes look leaky and the stuffing's bad. Whatever the selection is on that plate at quarterback won't taste good. But the bottom line is Jared Goff is still superior to Tim Boyle and David Blau. Blau couldn't even get in the game 2 weeks ago against the Steelers when Goff basically, with the oblique, could not throw the football. You had a quarterback on the field, basically, you were hoping he could get the ball out on a screen pass. The Lions' average yard per throw, I mean, they're completing passes at 2 yards a clip, 1.7 yards a clip. It's embarrassing. But Goff, after sitting last week out and Tim Boyle coming back from a broken thumb to play, Boyle threw for 77 yards. He just wasn't ready. It's bad. And you mentioned the receiving core, which isn't good. You and I touched on it this summer. Hawkinson got 6 catches last week. He got some targets, which was good. But the Lions are definitely afraid to put their quarterbacks in any type of position to throw the ball downfield. Every pass has been a screen or something cutesy over the middle, maybe a quick dump down. I'll be interested in seeing if they take any shots this week. But again, Goff could not physically throw past 10 yards 2 weeks ago. Now apparently they're going to say he's going to play. So let's see if they open it up a little bit and throw some things downfield. But the last few weeks, they just haven't done it with whomever has been under center.
It seems like since the Lions bye week, the defense has been keeping them in some of these games. I mean, they're statistically still one of the worst defenses in the NFL, but last 2 games, 16 points to the Steelers, 13 to the Browns is definitely. I mean, those can be good enough to win if you have a solid offense to back that up. I know that hasn't been the case for them this season, but has the defense started figuring something out, or is it just a reflection of the Steelers and Browns struggling? And where do you sort of assess the blame or the credit there?
Well, let's go both sides. Number one, yes, some younger players are stepping up and playing a little bit better. Amani Oruwariye and Jerry Jacobs at corner have seemingly gotten better. The pass rush with Julian Okwara, who's not really getting to the quarterback, but he's making some plays as a second-year outside linebacker. So that's been encouraging. We're seeing some signs of some guys stepping up. But over the last 2 weeks, they faced Mason Rudolph in the rain and Baker Mayfield, who's at about 30% in the rain. I mean, Baker missed Jarvis Landry on a wide open slant pattern, overshot him, and Oruwariye just happened to be 10 yards off the play, made the play, made the interception. So let's give some of the, let's pump the brakes a little bit on some of the play of the defense. They've gotten some help from the opposing quarterback and the elements. This Thursday, as you know, this is an indoor game at Ford Field. And if the Bears are going to try to stretch the field like they did with Andy Dalton on that 4th down play against the Ravens last week and take some shots, I still think they'll be able to complete some balls against the secondary.
They go from backup quarterback Mason Rudolph to injured quarterback Baker Mayfield now to backup quarterback Andy Dalton on Thanksgiving.
Right.
Another offense that has struggled to score points as of late. We'll get into this Bears quarterback situation, what's going on with the Bears offense and really the defense struggling too. When we come back with this crossover Thursday, Locked On Bears, Locked On Lions. Should say it's crossover Wednesday. Today's usually on Thursday, but today's crossover podcast is brought to you by Built Bar, the makers of the world's best tasting protein bars. If you haven't tried a Built Bar by now, you're missing out because it is a protein bar by definition, but it doesn't taste like other protein bars. Some of those other brands, they taste kind of chalky or waxy, and they're just kind of hard to chew down. They sound good, but when you actually taste it, it's just kind of that off-putting taste. But Built Bars are so much different. Every Built Bar is soft, chewy, and covered in 100% real chocolate. So they taste like candy bars, but they're all still low sugar, low calorie, high fiber, and high protein. I don't think there is another product on the market that has this combination of flavor and taste with those nutrients that they're actually good for you and it tastes good for you. They've got a bunch of different flavors. Everyone I've had has tasted wonderful, and I know you can find something you will love. Head on over to built.com and use our promo code LOCKED15, and you're going to get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
All right, Matt Dery, Locked On Lions, Wednesday crossover. Lorin Cox, Locked On Bears. Thanksgiving Day doesn't get any better than Detroit and Chicago again. It seems like, Lorin, every year you and I are doing this, and it's the Wednesday crossover because they're playing on Thanksgiving. Bears fans excited for this, or what? What is the pulse and the mood in Chicago right now after really playing the Ravens close, just like the Lions did, and then gagging one away again?
Yeah, normally the Bears-Lions Thanksgiving matchup is circled as this sort of like bounce back game, right? One of these on paper that's just a get right. Okay, there's one we can pencil in, maybe in pen, in ink, put a W on the schedule. It's like, oh, well, Lions on Thanksgiving. We'll take that one and end this losing streak. But the problem is like the Ravens, as soon as we knew Lamar Jackson wasn't playing, that was supposed to be the easy win of like, oh, well, Tyler Huntley, what's he gonna do, right? The Bears are they got Justin Fields. They're gonna run away with this. Maybe not blow him out, but shouldn't have much problem with a backup quarterback in Baltimore. Of course, they struggled to put any points on the board. They blow it at the very end for the back-to-back weeks. The losing streak is now at 5 games in a row, and now you get flimsy reports, but reports nonetheless about Matt Nagy potentially facing a firing immediately, although the Bears have never fired a coach in season in franchise history, and reports about the players maybe not wanting to play hard for Nagy. They've all denied that. They've all said at press conferences, we love Coach. We're going to play hard for Coach. And it doesn't seem like there's been this, massive locker room loss necessarily just yet, but a loss to the winless Lions on Thanksgiving. Now that's the kind of game and kind of performance that could maybe start to turn the tides there as things really start to hit the fan. But I think they still have this game eyed as an opportunity to try and beat up on a team that's clearly, lesser in the win-loss column for sure, and a team the Bears feel like they should be better than, but the fan base not feeling super confident that the Lions are all of a sudden still an easy win.
Look, we've talked so much about the Bears in the past and the game at Soldier Field. Justin Fields came in and played really, really well. He wasn't dominant per se, but he was good in that first start. And certainly the Bears defense had their way with Goff and company. But this is like an entirely different roster now that the Lions are facing from earlier in the year. Dalton's going to quarterback. No Khalil Mack. Allen Robinson's hurt. Take me through all these injuries and how it's affected them.
Yeah, Allen Robinson was one of the players who spoke to the media this week. So that's usually a good sign that he may be able to return this game. He didn't play last week. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury, but maybe they'll get him back. But yes, so Khalil Mack is out for the season now, having, I believe, foot surgery. Akeem Hicks has been missing games. Eddie Goldman left their last game with injuries. Eddie Jackson has been missing games. He has the potential of coming back in this one. Of course, you already mentioned the quarterback spot, and they're really, especially that defense, is just not playing certainly as well as they have in years past, and has really been on the decline the last few games. It's been kind of tough sledding. Some of the younger players have not been stepping up and taking that next level. They're talking about now maybe rotating their other starting cornerback opposite Jalen Johnson, because the other starter, Kindle Vildor, was just toasted. That last game-winning drive by the Ravens was like pass interference on Vildor, busted coverage by Vildor, and then I think he gave up a big completion down the sideline as well that he should have been in position for and was just late getting over to. So maybe they rotate in, Artie Burns or former Lion Jalen Tabor is also a member of this Bears secondary. So, it's a mess that in the 11th game of the season, they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do across this defense. And it's kind of led to a lot of these issues. And then offensively, it's been difficult for either quarterback to really be on the same page with the wide receivers, because, when Dalton was still getting used to them at the beginning of the season, and then Fields comes in and hadn't practiced with them all season. And so he was kind of getting there with Mooney and Robinson and everybody else. And now Dalton's coming back in and again, hasn't really been practicing with the first team. So is again, trying to get that connection with his players. And so you're just that timing and accuracy has not been there offensively. And it's just a consequence of all these different moving parts and injuries.
I can't believe it, Lorin. You just mentioned Tease Tabor. Is he actually playing? I know he's playing some safety.
Yes.
If he's on the field, Lions fans are going to go crazy.
Yeah, he's mostly been a backup safety. It's like when Eddie Jackson's been hurt, he'll get some rotational time. I think the Bears went to him early this season, and he didn't play particularly well, and they've since kind of kept things off. But if Jackson's out and they're rotating cornerbacks, there may be an opportunity for him to see the field again on defense.
Give me something, Lorin, positively about the offense, if you can, and what the Lions defense should be concerned about on Thursday.
They still run the ball well. They've got two talented running backs in David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. Damian Williams is still a quality player too, but really it's the Montgomery and Khalil Herbert show. They both run hard, they run well, they make a lot of guys miss, and this offensive line is much better at run blocking than pass protection. It seems to be where a lot of their offensive identity is. They don't always stick with it, and they kind of get away from it. And if they're down on the scoreboard in some stretches, they can't just run the ball all over. But we've been seeing Matt Nagy and offensive coordinator Bill Lazor now go to more like two running back looks. They'll do the David Montgomery as the wildcat quarterback and run an option with Khalil Herbert. And they were even like lining up Khalil Herbert at like a kind of an H-back move tight end piece as a blocker sometimes, and some misdirection with different running backs going different ways. So some of that was Fields' mobility, giving them, some different option looks to kind of stretch out defenses. They won't have that as much with Andy Dalton, but I think they're going to see a lot of downhill running and trying to make things easier on the quarterback and playing some of that similar ball control offense, possession, ugly type game.
Remember the last time you and I spoke, I guarantee the Lions win. I'm like, this is it. Lions are getting their first win. The Bears aren't any good. I don't know if I want to go out on a limb and do this again, but I do think this is the best chance for Detroit to win at home. It's Thanksgiving. The Bears have lost 5 straight. I don't know. I can't do like I did last time, Lorin, because I was like adamant the Lions were going to win. And they're going to win a game or two. They are. This is not an 16-1 team. They're not good, but I mean, where do you stand on this? Do you see the Bears losing?
This is the worst I felt about a Bears team against the Lions in a long time. I mean, we're talking, the Mark Trestman 2014 type collapse team level of
Yes.
Just that, not that like I think this team has more talent, but just the way that everything is falling apart and the media firestorm and the fan base. Fans were chanting "Fire Nagy" at
I heard Nagy at the Bulls game.
Football, and his son's high school football game, which is disrespectful, but that's the level of contempt and just messy stuff's going wrong where this team is just not playing as well even as their talent suggests, and they're not even all that talented either. So I can't bring myself to I wouldn't put money on the Lions getting their first win against the Bears, but if there was ever a time for them to do it, this is a pretty good one. Gut still tells you win this Lions team shouldn't be good enough to beat the Bears, and there's enough talent here that the Bears should win. But after getting carved up by Tyler Huntley last week, I really have my doubts, and I think that as much as Dalton came in and scored a little bit, there was a lot of that was not so much him. It was players making plays after the catch, and then he made a great adjustment on the last play of the game. But in between, there was a lot of rough stuff too. So I'm thinking low scoring, running back and forth, and it's going to come down to maybe a last second field goal attempt by one of these two teams, and I could see the upset for sure.
Lorin Cox, Locked On Bears. Matt Dery, Locked On Lions. It's the Wednesday crossover. Lorin, always a pleasure, buddy.
Appreciate you having me on. Hopefully we get a more entertaining game than this one looks on paper, but happy Thanksgiving either way.